Hi, I'm Sharon Evans. About 2 years ago, I joined one of the small groups here at Lake Dayton. At first, I was a little uncomfortable because I was new here and didn't really know anybody. I think most of the women didn't know everybody in the group either, but since then we've grown to be close and really supportive of each other. I can recall several times when one of our group was questioning whether or not to attempt something new. Their apprehension was eased by the encouragement of the others. And as a group, we have also worked together on several small missions. I think that finding these small things to do together encourages us to look for ways to show God's love to others on an individual basis. One of the ways that Jesus asks us to show love to others is by caring for the sick. So I want to tell you about my dad, Harry Capper. He was an engineer, inventor, and probably the most smart, interesting person I've ever known, and he was also the biggest Christian influence in my life. Until December 2019, my dad was very active and loved to serve through his Methodist church. But that month he was getting weak and he had a really bad knee. He was getting ready to go in for a knee replacement later that month and he could hardly walk. But he kept struggling on to do the things that he loved. One of those things that he enjoyed was loading bags of clothing donations that were excess at his church's thrift shop for delivery to community aid where they could be used. He had been doing this for several years. One time he told me that he routinely loaded up to 600 pounds of clothing at once into his van and delivered them by himself. He did this right up to the time when he had his knee replacement on New Year's Eve. But after the operation, he just seemed to get worse. He got weaker for the next few months. Instead of improving after a lot of physical therapy, he was losing function in his legs. In March, his speech became slurred, and after testing, my dad was diagnosed with ALS in May. ALS is a debilitating motor neuron disease that is always fatal. Eventually, ALS patients lose the ability to move, speak, eat, and breathe. My husband and I were caregivers for my dad for the last few months of his life. We feel blessed that we were in a place in our lives that we were able to do that and to care for him. But it was also overwhelming, and we were physically exhausted doing all the things that are necessary to care for an ALS patient. Also, the emotional impact of seeing Dad get progressively worse was really hard, even with personal aides coming in a few hours a day and eventually with the assistance of hospice. My dad passed away on December 24th. It was hard to lose him on Christmas Eve, but it gave us some peace when we realized that he would be with Jesus on Christmas. But here's where the story becomes relevant. My dad was very fortunate that he had financial means to cover any needs that weren't covered by Medicare, but a lot of people aren't that fortunate. I've seen many people on the ALS support group on Facebook asking if there are any places they can go for assistance with the many necessities that come along with dealing with the challenges that ALS brings. Some people are trying to raise kids and work while caring for their family member with ALS. I can't even imagine how anybody can deal with all of this without a lot of support. So I feel that one way I can be involved in mission and service to others is to give support and assistance to ALS caregivers through phone calls, visits, and delivering meals. My husband and I will be volunteering with a local ALS support group to serve in that manner. I think that there are different ways that service and mission can qualify as risk-taking. For me, because it was so hard to watch my father slowly pass away from such an awful disease, I know that it will be really hard to see ALS patients and their families go through the same thing. I think this is where I'm being pulled to serve others, to take this personal risk. I think that it's important to take the risk to go out into the community to show God's love and compassion wherever there is a need. The kindness and compassion we show could mean a great deal to those who we serve, and I'm looking forward to these new opportunities.